Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on, YouTube? Mental Complex here, and today I've got technically a triple knife review. These are all part of the same series of knives that were brought to us by a gentleman named Dustin Rhodes. I'll invite you guys to go to the link in the description if you want to read about the designer. It's pretty cool. These are made by Artisan Cutlery, and the three knives, which are called the Sorcerer, the Mage, and, sorry, excuse me just one second. This one's a little shiny. This one is called the, oh God, it's really slippery with the gloves here. The Enchanter, which is, yeah, wow, that's pretty amazing there. So this is currently in Kickstarter, and I think they've hit their goal. I think it says it's going to be backed one way or another, but clearly they've hit their goal. You can still get in on the Kickstarter and get your sort of pre-order in by backing the one that you want, and you will get a pretty reasonable discount on these when they drop sometime in October. The exact date will be down there in the description as well. There are also some package deals. There's also a Magna Cut one. They have a Magna Mage it's a different tier, right? I'll let you guys check it out. It's all linked in the description. Thanks so much to Artisan Cutlery for sending these in to share with people. We're going to bring this guy back, and also we'll do this guy. We'll bring this guy back here in a little bit. But thanks to Artisan Cutlery and Dustin Rhodes, and thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Let's go ahead and get some quick specs on this knife, and then we can talk about it. So the overall length here on the Sorcerer, they're all the same, is going to come in at about 7.5 inches. I want to point this out. This feels like a knife that's bigger. It feels like, I would have guessed 7 3/4 at least, but I think it's probably just the personality, and spoiler alert, I really like it. It makes it feel like a larger knife than it actually is. We have a really fantastic blade to handle ratio. This blade is legitimately 3.45 inches long by my measurement. We also have a cutting edge of 3.25, which is very uncommon for a 7.5 inch knife. In fact, it's so uncommon, I'm going to check it again. Yeah, wow, really nice work there, maximizing the amount of usable blade on this knife. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom skills you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. So up against the 8010 and the 8020.5, which is for some reason completely gone. So we'll use the G10 version right here. Literally no idea where that knife went. You can see here it is definitely closer to the size of the AD20.5, nowhere near the size of the 8010, but it does not feel like a small knife at all. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Once again, much closer to the size of the Para 3, but you'll notice the cutting edge is actually substantially longer than even the PM2, so that's pretty cool. Finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Hogue Deca, which should also be right here. There it is. I don't know why these knives are gone today, but there you go. Very similar in overall size to the Hogue Deca. How is the action on this knife? Well, it's spectacular. As you would expect, this is a button lock, an actual plunge lock. Some people love button locks, some people hate them, right? You really have to get the geometry right to make sure that they're not going to disengage. Fortunately, Artisan Cutlery has done these correctly. Some channels will test these much harder. I find that anything harder than what I did is unnecessary, because you're not going to find yourself in a situation, unless you're just doing something stupid with it, where that's natural use of a knife. So these knives hold up just fine. Disengagement is fantastic. The thumb stud placement is so good, and I also love the shape and size of the thumb studs, because he did not opt, when I say he, Dustin, did not opt for a small thumb stud. These are beautifully comfortable to manipulate. A lot of designs at this size, they'll just go with a smaller thumb stud because they feel like it's appropriate for this size, and I disagree. I think these thumb studs are perfect. They're incredibly similar to the thumb studs I always reference on the Ontario Rat 1 and 2, because I think they're perfect. Very, very similar. It also has a little front flipper, which actually works really well, because the plunge lock on this knife is actually a really nice detail. Listen to this. little metallic sound there. Very satisfying. All of them feel like that. Much heavier than what you would normally expect from a plunge lock. The end result is roughly a medium detent. I guess if you want to compare it to like your standard ball, like your detent ball, right? But it is the plunge lock to acting as the detent. This one is just tuned really nice, has a nice thwack. It operates exactly the way that it should. Access to that thumb stud is also fantastic, so I think it's great. All three knives have the exact same action. Even though I was real dramatic with the real shiny and slippery one, it will be more slippery, but I'll demonstrate here in a second. The reason that one was a little harder to deploy is because I was wearing really slippery gloves. But I wanted to show it off without any fingerprints on it at least once before we got into it. But anyways, the knife is very easy and comfortable to deploy. Carry profile, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's nice and thin. Not so thin that it feels delicate, but nice and thin. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. This is the one that I carried, and the carry experience was exactly what you'd expect, right? It just doesn't take a professional of anything to be able to look at this and go, yeah, that probably carries pretty easily. And it does. Lengthwise, it's almost exactly the same as the Para 3, not nowhere near as tall, nowhere near the same size as the PM2. This thing just disappears in the pocket without being so lightweight and compact that you will forget about it, which is perfect in my book. I really like that. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. I have a nice little touch here. Whether this was Dustin or Artisan Cutlery, I don't know. But we have a T8 pivot, but we also have T8 hardware. Thank you. Artisan Cutlery loves T6 hardware, and I hate it. T8 or bigger, please. I love this. That's so nice. Just a couple of screws here on each side, and then you have the hidden screw for the pocket clip. And yes, that is a filler tab with the screws holding it in place underneath. I think that's a classy way of doing that because it's easier to look at this. Looks like a rupee from Legend of Zelda, which I think is even cooler. I love the wizard and mage and sorcerer. They're like, it fits. And those are cool names for knives, right? I just like that. But the fact that this reminds me of a rupee from Legend of Zelda, I think is a nice little touch, right? Especially on the ones where it's like this one, where that really looks like a rupee. I like that a lot. Okay. So anyways, hardware's great. Very easy to disassemble, take apart, put back together. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. If I sound a little hoarse, it's because I lost my voice due to a recent cold. No big deal. It'll come back, but I've been this way. You'll probably notice it in multiple uploads. Blade stock thickness on this guy coming in at 125 thousandths, middle of the road. Let's weigh them. They're all going to have slightly different weights, given that they have slightly different materials. The base level version with the carbon fiber inlay coming in at 3 ounces. Perfect. That's right there where it's ultra lightweight, but it's not quite so light that I'll forget about it. 3 ounces. How incredible. With a 3.45 inch blade. Wonderful. This guy will probably weigh exactly the same. Titanium Damascus shouldn't be any different. Apparently it is. Why? Okay, 3.2. And then the mirror polish boy, which I'm not quite ready to touch yet. I'm just not. The glove's going to be inside out. Sorry, it looks weird. Not quite ready to touch this one yet. Ah, beautiful. So beautiful. This guy also really shouldn't weigh any different. Apparently, Titanium Damascus does. 3.2. So 3 to 3.2 ounces is what you're looking at. Either way, wonderful ratios. Good to go. Let's go ahead. We did the blade stock thickness, we did the weight, we did the hardware check. Let's go ahead and talk about the meat and potatoes of these beautiful, beautiful knives. We're gonna go ahead and touch this one. We're gonna go ahead and touch it. All right. This is a really nice looking design. Now, let's be real. It's a profile that we have seen before. This is a classic knife profile. Right? So for those of you looking for something unique in the design lines, it isn't, right? I mean, we have knife lines that we've seen many, many times. But the reason we see them so often is because they work. The personality, I think, is in just the designiness and the options that you can get. A lot of people would describe knives that are brightly colored as gas station knives, right? Often you get people referring to, in about the laziest way possible, knives that have titanium Damascus look like a gas station knife. And we all know the reason. It's because people, especially newer people, can't tell the difference. They don't know the difference between something like titanium Damascus and some titanium nitride. It's not even that. It's just like a rainbow crap coating, right? It's just colorful. So they also don't know that gas station knives and cheaper knives often copy the appearance of higher end knives, and especially the custom knives that came decades before. So that's the idea. But, even people that, exist in the knife world for a long time and kind of figure out their tastes, oftentimes they just evolve into a position where they don't want a lot of color on their knives. And that makes these options all the better, especially considering, they're all different price ranges. You can get the version that you want. That's just a long-winded way of saying you can pick up the version that you want, with the least shiny being the standard Sorcerer level. I keep forgetting which one. It's not the Sorcerer is the basic one. So I want to explain real quick on the pre-order. There was a time where they were even less expensive. They had early bird versions of these that were even less expensive. But right now, with the backing system for the Kickstarter, you can still get in on these and still get great prices. So the Sorcerer comes in at, by the way, we didn't talk about all the materials, including the blade. The blades on all three of these are S90V, even the mirror polished one, which is insane, hardened to 59 to 61, which is actually exactly appropriate for S90V. They have the Mage, which I have to assume is heat treated a little higher, but I honestly don't know. That one's $50 more than this guy. And then again, they have some package deals. But the base version of this right now, if you go and back it, it's titanium with the camo carbon fiber and the sand polished, which they did a great job on, S90V blade. $200, which they call 30% off. What they probably mean is 30% off of MSRP. No one will ever pay MSRP. So whatever these end up being when they, land, when they're produced and they land, you can just go buy them. You'll definitely pay more than the Kickstarter, but you won't pay MSRP. So whether you get it now or you're like, I can't afford it right now, I'll just get it later, the end price, especially for the base one, is, in my opinion, totally justified. If you want some titanium Damascus accents, which on this are heavy, you have the backspacer, 2 big inlays, right? A pivot collar, and the pocket clip, all titanium Damascus. That guy, if you do the backing for the Kickstarter, is $299, also listed as 30% off. And then the super crazy one, this is way more expensive. There's a ton of people out there who don't realize how costly it is to mirror polish a blade. This is a true mirror polished blade. You might not have utility for it. You might not like how it looks, but that doesn't change at all how costly it is to do this. They have also mirror polished the entire frame, which is all titanium Damascus. A lot more titanium Damascus. Pocket clip, the backspacer, everything. There's no pivot collar because why, right? But mirror polished S90V. That's going to be substantially more. $699, which is also listed as 30% off. Now, if you can find me another full titanium Damascus framed knife with mirror polished S90V for less, and it is legitimately heat treated properly, then I'll submit to the idea that this is overpriced. Spoiler alert, you won't find one. It's not. Because Artisan Cutlery is the only company, to my knowledge, that's actually been able to combine these materials for that price. If you don't like that, if you're like, fine, metal complex, fine, but that's still too much money for me, don't worry about it. Just get the base model because that's a perfect one. You can also get the Mage for $350. So pay $50 more for Magna, because essentially this guy here, but it's MagnaCut. If you just really love MagnaCut, then great, right? I didn't realize it was so much more expensive than S90V. I like MagnaCut, but personally I'll take S90V because the edge retention is just really, really good, and I like the other balance of attributes, right? But then again, I also am a huge fan of Vanax, and Vanax is hardly a whole lot different from MagnaCut. So honestly, I like MagnaCut too. Pick your poison. That's the whole idea here. You can pick whichever one you want, and truthfully, all the prices are great. Ergonomics, very, very good. You have a perfect choke up position. I love that part of it is the frame, part of it is right behind the blade. That's fantastic. The thumb stud is ever so slightly, well, I say ever so slightly. It's probably about a 1/4 inch in the cutting path. Not that big of a deal though. Nice and thin behind the edge. This one cuts and slices just fine. I actually did a decent amount of cutting with this thing with cardboard, just some stuff that I was breaking down in the garage, and they have definitely heat treated this properly. No fatigue, anything like that. And it is still easily slicing paper. Here's the one that I used. Not a ton. You guys know I don't go out and try to survive with these things, but yeah, holy crap. I mean, it is like razor sharp still. Maybe a couple of areas, not wanting to bite quite as well as brand new. Here's a brand new edge. Look at that. Gorgeous, right? The mirror polished one, he's not going to cut with that. Why? It's paper, right? No big deal. They all have the exact same cutting geometry, just fine. Obviously, slicing paper doesn't really prove anything. The factory edge, factory blade geometry is really, really good. Cutting through something like cardboard, styrofoam, you can probably guess how it's going to do. This is pretty thin geometry in S90V. S90V is a blade composition that's going to accentuate edge holding performance, right? Edge retention. And it's also going to have pretty darn good corrosion resistance. Not very tough, and it will definitely be tricky to sharpen, especially considered it's heat treated properly, right? But man, does it hold an edge. This will blow your your industry standard M390 out of the water, and even your really hard M390. It'll blow it out of the water in terms of edge retention. So the fact that you can get it from Artisan Cutlery on a premium build for $200, or if you wait, probably not a whole lot more than $200. I mean, Artisan Cutlery regularly releases titanium and S90V knives for $200. So my guess is this will be around $225 if you end up picking it up, which is also fair. This is really, really good. Very easy to manipulate, beautiful cutting geometry, very comfortable. Kind of wish that the jimping would extend out further. I don't know why we always stop back here, but it's right there in the same position as the index finger, so it's fine. Edges all nicely knocked down, nothing sharp. Pocket clip is a weirdly sharp rectangle, 90 degrees, but it is flat, right? Very, very shallow, so I don't feel it at all, truthfully. It's weird that the edges are not rounded. Typically, this is a popsicle stick style clip, but the edges are kind of sharp. That's weird, but I don't really feel it. Backspacer on all three is floating. You have, should I have these in here so you guys can see them? I don't know. The camera might have weird issues focusing. Some holes in here, right? Floating backspacer. Kind of cool. Just a little bit of extra dressiness on an otherwise just plain backspacer. So I kind of like that. No lanyard hole, but who cares? Some people, not very many. The top of the pocket clip is shaped like the rupee filler tab on this side. If you are left-handed, you can flip this over and you'll operate the button with your index finger, which is fine. I'm not left-handed, which is why I'm having a little bit of trouble with this. If you choke up on this, as is the case with a lot of button locks, squeezing it could result in disengaging it because the pad of your index finger will fall right on top of the button. You'd have to squeeze it pretty hard though because it's up pretty high. If you are right-handed, it's very unlikely unless you intentionally place your index finger right on top of the button. You're probably going to know it's there and you'll probably adjust to not do that. This is a much more natural position than this. So only if you are hammer gripping it and your finger is on the button and you don't realize it, which truthfully, it would be a situation that could occur if you're wearing gloves because you might not feel it. Only in that situation would you disengage it. But this is no different than any other button lock, right? So just pay attention to where your hands are and you'll be okay. The sand polishing on both the Sorcerer and the Mage, on the ones that I got, is very good. I've gotten on Artisan Cutlery for this in the past where this finish seems to be inconsistent. Both of these are really, really nice. Definitely better than a standard satin finish. Obviously not quite as good as a true mirror. What's the benefit with a mirror finish? Increased corrosion resistance and decreased drag. That's why blades are polished at all, right? A lot of people would say, oh, mirror polished blades, what's the point? It's going to scratch up. That's literally why. Mirror polishing on a blade is not a new thing. In fact, it's been done for hundreds of years. The idea, aside from the fact that it looks cool, is that you are increasing the corrosion resistance for whatever the base composition is, and you're also decreasing the amount of drag, right, or friction that's created between the blade and whatever it is you're cutting. But in this case, yeah, it's really shiny, right? I know that people are going to get hung up on that one, which is why I keep coming back to it. Anyways, yeah, the whole profile, very classic. It's exactly what you'd expect, right? You have a nice wedge here. This is all knocked down, not sharp or anything like that. Up here you have, of course, the tip. It's very pointy, as you might expect. You have an even cutting bevel on both sides. That's the same with both knives. You know, Artisan Cutlery does a good job with their fit and finish. I would have loved to see this contoured. It's not, but it is really, really nice. the whole thing feels better than what I generally expect from Artisan Cutlery. So I feel like they added a little bit of love here. Just a little bit. Definitely a little bit of styling with the pivot collar. It looks really good, right? This camo carbon that has a little bit of light blue and dark blue does look good. I don't know if they offer different versions or different carbon fiber versions. If they don't, I find it odd that the only choices are all with color. This is the most subdued, and I don't think that most people have an issue with this. I didn't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. I wish that there was a version with just plain carbon fiber, like black camo carbon. I think that would look really good. But okay, whatever. That's personal preference. Let's see. Anything else to talk about there? No. In and out of the pocket is fine. I did get this kind of hung up just a little bit because it's so shallow. So every now and then, depending on what I was wearing, like in athletic shorts, athletic pants, no big deal. In my cargo pants, when I was out in the garage, in and out of the pocket, I was having to kind of fight it a bit. It's not really that big of a deal, right? But it's something to be aware of. Your stop pin is located here. Traditional stop pin position. No blade play up, down, left, or right on any of them. Slight lock stick with the buttons. That's typical. It will go away over time. No blade play up, down, left, or right. Did I say that? At that time, we had no button stick, so it's periodic. We have no pivot lash whatsoever. Incredibly smooth and consistent in here. And a really, really nice detent. These are great knives. For a lot of people, the embellishments are not going to be enough to win them over because it is a pretty standard knife blade profile, pretty standard knife handle profile. You just have different options, and it's an opportunity for especially people wanting to get their hands on something in Damascus, like if you have always lusted, if you're like me and you love the crazy colors and the mirror polishing, you've probably been really turned off by the fact that normally when you get stuff like this, it's well over $1,000, right? We don't see a lot of people creating stuff like this outside of custom makers. And there are very few Chinese production companies that are tackling this type of thing. And even when they do it, it ends up being a crazy amount of money. So when I say that, the prices I think are good for all of them, I mean it. $700 is a lot of money. Then again, there's nobody else out there creating this for $700. So I think that's pretty great. You can buy that if you want to, or you can just not and just forget that it exists. I don't have a problem with this guy at $300. You're going to pay more money for any of them, obviously, if you wait until after the Kickstarter, but that's up to you. This guy's obviously the best deal. We're going to focus on this one because this one's the most utility and the least embellishment. This is a really great knife. The design is very good. It's very EDC oriented. It's obviously designed by somebody who cares about not just fidget factor and like manipulation, but ease of manipulation and utility and comfort and all of that. This will do exactly what you want your pocket knife to do. Is it substantially better than a $50 pocket knife that's made with lesser materials and it just isn't quite as like shiny or cool? No, but as far as the competition at $200, right, for the materials, like, yes, S90V will hold an edge way longer. Yeah, the titanium looks and feels cooler, right? The whole knife just looks a lot more premium. For people shopping in this territory, this is a pretty seriously competitive knife. Even if you wait until after the Kickstarter and you end up paying $225 or even $235, right? Whatever 30% of, if you're getting 30% off and the end price ends up being $199, right? If you have to pay that 30% markup, which you won't, because that's almost certainly based off of MSRP. Whatever it is that you have to pay extra here, $225 or so, yeah, it's worth it. This is a fantastic knife. Absolutely fantastic. Highly recommendable. Check it out if you want to. No, I don't get commissions on the pre-order or the Kickstarter, right? But I'll link it anyway. It doesn't matter. I do have commissionable links, or like I get, you guys know I have affiliate links. So when you use links in the description, I get a little commission. It works through the Artisan Cutlery website, not through Kickstarter. But either way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, if I get paid or not on this stuff. I'm always going to tell you guys exactly what I think. And I think this is awesome. And you should definitely pick it up if you can. That's going to be it today, guys. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at _metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.